Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Growing Up Alien. And today we have part two with our special guest, Paul Hyman, and the wonderful neuroplasticity exercises that he has been bringing to us. And this is our second long-awaited, it's been a week, right, episode for folks to try some of these new exercises and see which one works or which collection works particularly well for you. And I just wanted to forward again, it doesn't have to be for, you know, psychological issues, attacks from the deep state. You can also use these exercises to assist in getting you into the proper frame of mind to do remote viewing and telepathic. So there are a plethora of delights which you can pull. It's almost like a nice salad. You kind of toss, everybody takes out what they like. So, right. So, Paul, I'll let you introduce your next series, and then I will pull up the pictures.
Thank you, Andrea. Good to see you again. Welcome, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here again to share with you another level. Eventually, what I like you to realize is that these skills are totally meant to be layered on top of each other. So when we finish doing all the 13 skills, then I will teach you which types of skills you may layer depending on the situation or the individual that you're working with. If you're working with children, it's all your choice. And I like you to be the master of this masterpiece that you're painting, both for yourself and for other people. So these skills are basically a palette of colors. And you can take a little of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, shade it in, and I don't know if I like that color. So then you can mix it up again and do all of this. So in a little bit of a review from last week, because I asked everybody if you would teach somebody within the next 24 hours one of these skills. So what I'm going to do is do a really quick overview. So if everybody, now you can do this, then when we get into the new material, you can partake in all of this. However, learning is really something that really, since 2020, I really think all of us have gone through a lot of changes. And one of the things that I came up with, I was hearing this over and over and over again, and I'm sure you did too. The new normal. Did you hear that over again? The new normal, the new normal. Well, I've never really knew what normal in the first place was, let alone what the new normal was. So I came up with my own word. You can add it to your vocabulary. Lamron. Lamron is normal, flipped backwards. So I see it as Lamron. Okay, so what I'd like all of you to do is to, if you have water,
Oh, I knew. I'm trainable. It's
thank okay. So cheers, everybody. Sip of water.
I'm trained.
And then we're going to do a variation on this meridian connection. So just take your right hand, cross it over, touch your left shoulder. Take your left hand, cross it over, touch your right shoulder. And now I'd like you just to stretch out your legs and cross one ankle over the other.
Lock my camera.
Okay. And as you're doing this, just notice if your tongue is on the roof of your mouth. If not, just place it there. And we're going to talk today around this model I use called learning developmental hierarchy. So the very first piece is what I said. If you're not aware, you can't take care. Now, I've got this little tensegrity ball. Now, What's amazing with this, though, is when you're breathing and you feel safe, your breathing is just incredibly expansive. However, when you start to feel threatened or fearful, all of a sudden that ball just gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And what I was saying about the fact that the research shows that people that have been traumatized over and over again, this has become the lamron that they experience because they almost have lost touch with feeling that they are this compressed. So these skills are not only about in the immediate moment of a crisis, but also for you to use afterwards so that you can keep growing and growing and growing and come back to your dynamic self. So this is a key piece. The other piece I found really interesting in my work in healthcare, because they had an experiment where they had, let's make one cell amoeba. And then they had this maybe 2 cell, 3, 4 cell other type of amoeba on a microscopic slide. Now, do you realize that that little tiny 1 cell amoeba had the intelligence to know that there was danger around them on that slide? And what they observed was that little tiny 1 cell organism slowly moving away from the perceived threat or the predator. It's amazing to think that that intelligence, and this is what I talk about in terms of universal consciousness, it's around us, it's in us. That little amoeba had enough intelligence to just shut down. So awareness is very important. So if you'd like to show the slide,
Oh.
please, Andrea. And we're working on this technology.
Huh? Oh, mine is just a little slow. Yeah. First slide.
Yeah, the one with the teeter-totter.
The teeter-totter. Okay.
Okay, there you
Yeah.
go. Okay, so we talked last week about this teeter-totter, and that is as emotions go up, rationality and patience goes down. And it's a dynamic movement. It's always in motion. So really recognizing what is when you start feeling the emotions coming up and how does it feel to feel the emotions come down. Now, I did a session with a person the other day and I called it the 10-second rule. And in my trainings, in the 10-second rule, or they call it the 10-second miracle by Gay and Katie Hendricks, they say everything you need to do in life can be decided in 10 seconds. And I would use this when I was working at this hospital with people with mental health and substance abuse issues to say, could you not come on up with something immediately rather than sit in that sort of squeeze down position? 10 seconds, everybody, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In that amount of time, would you not be able to do a few of these skills that we're looking at? That's what I'm saying about keeping that awareness of your emotions. Now, with working with children, I have the sunshine. So I'll have that for children. I'll ask them where they are along that continuum. And it's just something rather than getting into their thoughts or emotions and all of this. I asked them, do they feel like a sunny day today, or maybe it's an overcast day? And let's like bring a little sunshine to their life. The top one is also very excellent. And that is, you can do this, just draw a straight line across a sheet of paper, and you can have sort of like a downturned face, and then you can have a happy face, and then in the middle, you can have a neutral face. And a child is looking at that, and you just say, okay, where do you see yourself along this continuum? And you just get them to mark it in. Now, whatever their awareness is, whatever they're experiencing, they don't have to say anything to anyone, but that's their relative state at the beginning. And then afterwards, where are you now? And that's part of the education, is that you're constantly reinforcing this new change. This is where I was before. I did these 13 skills, or some of the 13 skills, and this is where I am today, or this is where I am a few minutes later. So it's really good because it reinforces the fact that you're empowering yourself. You're not a victim to these attacks. You're not a victim of circumstances. You can empower yourself and self-regulate. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is the neuroplasticity.
That should be.
That was the first slide you had. Okay,
Yep,
there we go.
here we go.
Okay, everybody. I talked last week about neuroplasticity. It's been around like ever. However, with the high diagnostic tools, we can actually see what the brain is doing. So as you look at the top picture, neuroplasticity, neurogenesis is the growth of new neural pathways. And as you can see over in the one side, like a tree forming, it starts off with a little tiny bump. And then the more you stimulate that, it gets a little bit larger and a little bit larger. And then it starts to sprout out and spread. And this is what I mean by the more you do, the larger your resiliency net is to land softer and spring back faster. Now, I once went to, well, was invited to a number of international conferences. I met this neuroscientist. Now, she showed a slide that I still get goosebumps when I think of it. Do you realize that she had this slide from other researchers, neuroscience researchers, that within 20 minutes of doing a new activity, they saw the potential of new neural pathways. Within 20 minutes, you saw this little tiny bump being formed. And as we do these exercises more and more, eventually you get over to that tree, that rooted tree. Now, I did this also to explain this for children, because children are so vulnerable, and whatever childhood experience you had, it still may be something that these skills will help mitigate, balance out for you. So what I have for the children is in the lower pictures, because the brain can always develop neural connections, is a dirt pathway. Have you ever seen kids walking through a schoolyard? They're not doing a 90-degree bend. They're going on a diagonal, especially if they're late for class. Oh, now over time, other children go, hey, that's a pretty good idea. I think I'm going to cut across here too. Now, over time, that pathway, if it's used enough, becomes very convenient. So now it becomes a dirt road. And that dirt road eventually becomes a paved road. And that paved road actually becomes then maybe a superhighway where you have all these multiple chains and internet connections. And you can see that over on the very far end there, all these different overpasses. So that is pictures I put together that help explain a child how neuroplasticity develops. That as soon as you do this, it becomes a superhighway because what you're doing is you're what they call myelination. You're reinforcing those nerve pathways. Myelin is like a fatty sheathing around the nerve fiber, and it fires it faster and faster and faster. For example, how many of you have got in your vehicle or plane or train and you get to your destination and you can barely remember driving it? It's like, I'm not saying you're on autopilot. However, the fact is, it's so ingrained in your brain, you do it automatically. Now, the bottom picture over with the blue and the green dots, this will bring hope to all of us. That is your hippocampus, everybody. Now, in terms of aging, it was always assumed that there was a certain point we'd have all the neurons, brain fibers as we needed. No. That picture there, the hippocampus, it was always thought to be part of our memory system. And it was thought that as we got older, the hippocampus would get smaller and smaller and smaller. Look at this, everybody. That's deep within your brain with the right types of skills. That hippocampus is actually getting larger in volume. It's not shrinking because of age. It's like, again, keep firing your brain over and over and over again. Now, working with people that may have some issues with their neurology, be it normal or Lamron, you got this fiber here.
Do you want me to pull that? Want me to bring it on full screen so people can see?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so you have this little nerve fiber here. And then all of a sudden, everybody, it gets cut. However, you can see it, it's cut. But by using these skills, you can reconnect this neural connection, repair any sort of neurological damage, and have that potential coming back to you. Now, what I like to do is look at the developmental hierarchy. So, Andrea, if you want to just pull that up, please. And this is the model that I use to explain how this all puts together, because I'm working at building this house. And this house has a number of different building blocks. There we go.
Yep.
Now, the very first building block, everyone, is safety. Now, again, I say functional understanding, not necessary. Just have some fun. But the foundation, the cornerstone, the basis of all of us is having a solid foundation. And if we haven't had that in the beginning of life, we can see through neuroplasticity, we can rebuild it, we can strengthen it. So rather than building a house of cards that can top over anytime there's a puff of wind, we can be rock solid within ourselves. The next key piece is we want to have balance. Are we able to stay in that zone? Can we balance out everything that's going on? This is why in a crisis, in chaos, these are the two most important principles that I work with is get a person feeling safe and get them returning to some type of balance, homeostasis. Now, of course, in a chaotic crisis situation, that's harder to do than just say, oh, just relax, take a breath. As I said, you do not want to use any breathing at the first because they need to get connected with their body. Now, as we go up to the third building block, that's when we have motor movement patterns. So can we move through the world? Now, we're going to do this in another session. However, our motor patterns are ingrained in our brain. And therefore, last week I asked you, instead of walking upstairs leading with the same leg, how many of you maybe started with the opposite leg? Or you start walking and rather than starting with the same leg, you do that. Now, with this whole thing about balance, I have this little guy here.
Yeah.
And this little balance here, it's a dynamic skill. And some people develop such a skill for balance, they can perform unbelievable feats. So this whole concept of balance is throughout our whole life, and it's very subtle. Then when we get into these motor patterns, we need to feel safe. We need to have balance. Then we get into movement. So I've got this little character here that you can see. I can walk like this, or I can cross one side over, another side over. So these are different movement patterns. Then once we have that, we start going towards the higher brain functions, such as vision, our hearing, auditory, and a sense of tactile touch. So just for that, everyone, I've got this little, hey, there you are, Andrea. You have this little tiny periscope or telescope because the eyes develop. And that's the thing, it's another layer. However, if you don't have safety, everything shuts down. And then on top of that, you have communication next. And when we talk about left and right hemispheres, there's different characteristics, one versus the other. They're both equally beneficial. And we'll talk a little bit about that in another session. And then when all of that is together and we've built this house, then we come into cognitive thinking, both abstract and concrete. This is where we can play around, we can get creative, we can do all kinds of different things. But you need to have this house built. And this is how I've designed this program, because as you're going to find out in a few other sessions, we're going to cover all these building blocks all at once. I go full on into it. Now, Andrea, if you want to pick up the next picture, the 3-point stance. Okay, wonderful. Now, the other thing too, everybody, I'm going to just take a sip of water again. Truly, it helps. Or years ago, somebody gave me this. Now, Evian, a drop of water. To this day, I have still not figured out how do you open it. It's just a bottle of water. Now, what we're looking at is we want to have stability before mobility. How many of you can relate to maybe being so excited you start off really fast and then you just find out that you weren't ready for this trip or this biking route with a mountain bike? All of a sudden, what you thought was going to be easy actually gets really, really difficult really soon. So stability before mobility. Therefore, you need to be safe before you want to go outside or go out into the world. So with this, we're going to do a 3-point stance. Now, what I've got here, everybody, I've got a little extra foot here.
Yeah.
And what you've got here is you've got your big toe and you've got your little toe. So I'd like all of you, everyone, to stand up. Or if you want to stay seated, that's one thing. But it's really good to stand up because you're probably not going to go too far if you're always sitting.
Yeah.
So,
That's right.
well, maybe, I don't know. Astral projection.
Astral projection. Yeah. We can go far. Yes, right. Yeah.
So anyways, if you'd like to stand up, you can do that because we have 3 arches in our feet. And that allows us to have that stability in life. And what's important around this is being aware of your big toe and your little toe. I'd like you just now to just go from one side to the other. So you're going to have a little bit of a rock and roll. And I find if you're seated, the best way is lift up the heel of one foot and notice if you feel yourself tilting over this way, drop it down, pick up the heel of the other foot, tilt over. And the last point is your heel. So you've gone from side to side. Now what I'd like you to do, everybody, is experience, if you're standing or sitting, your big toe to your heel. That's your inner arch. And if you're sitting or standing, you can go back and forth. Now, I'd like you to be aware of your little toe and heel. So it's a 3-point stance. So in your little toe, I'd like you just to go back and forth and feeling that pressure point. Once you have that awareness, then I like you just to do a little tiny rotation. That's why I have the hula hoop in there. I was thinking, should I get a hula hoop and do this as a demo? But it's been a while. Anyways, I'd like you just to do a little bit of a hula hoop and then change direction. And you can initiate this by, again, keep lifting up your ankles, heel, and projecting yourself over to one side, come back around, and go to the other side. Now, this is one that I'd really like for your benefit to stand up. Andrea and I are going to sit.
Oh,
But
yeah,
if you'd like to,
yeah, you're gonna say we'd have to set a whole camera up there. It's like, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So everyone else, so please stand up. And like I said, I have my little figurine here.
Yeah, we can get rid of
No,
that one.
no. Okay, yeah, little figurine. So you find yourself standing. You got an awareness of the 3-point stance, big toe, little toe, and heel. And now what I'd like you to do is place your hands on your hips. And I want you to do
Oh,
the smoothest, roundest hula hoop spiral. And you're just moving around. Now, if you're standing, just notice the transfer of weight down to your feet. If you're seated, you probably will feel those two little bony protrusions. They're called the sits bones. And it doesn't matter how much padding you have, you can still feel it. Now, change direction, go the other way. Great. Now, what I'd like you to do now, these are very small movements. Regain your balance, stand there, check in, maybe wiggle big toe, little toe, heel. Okay. Now, you're going to begin doing the movements with your knees.
mm.
So rather than the hips, initiate this movement with your knees. It's going to be a lot smaller. And people don't need to know. And change direction. And as you're doing this, pay attention to how your feet are making contact. Notice when you're on the inside edge of one foot, transfer the weight to the inside edge of your other foot, to the outside edge, to the front part of your foot, transfer from the big toe over to your other big toe. You're doing all this movement, changing directions, everybody. And then slow it down and notice if you still feel a sense of motion inside. Now we're going to take it even smaller. I'd like you now to initiate this spiral action only with your ankles. Super, super small little rotations with your ankles. Change direction. Now, one of the things around this is where you're engaging your unconscious mind. It's limitless. And that is to ask yourself, what could be easier? Ask that question. What could be easier? Well, I don't really know, but it's an invitation for your brain to be engaged and saying, well, what could be easier than this? Okay, yeah, that works. And then you ask the brain another question. What could be even easier than that? Okay, yeah, that's getting there. And then finally, ask yourself, what could be the easiest? And this three-part question comes from a Dr. Milton Trager. and we're going to do some Trager work later on. However, when you ask that question, how many of you found yourself internalizing, well, how could that be softer? So one of the other things around this is you can use how could it be done with less effort? What's less effort than that? What's the least amount of effort? How could I do this lighter? How could I do this softer and softer yet? Now, when I was facilitating a lot of groups to make it in terms of a behavioral skill, I'd stand, there'd be a door over here, and then there'd be a wall here. And I'd walk up to the wall and start hitting the wall with my head. I'm not getting through this brick wall. And then I ask the question before I get a headache, what could be easier? The door way? Move over to the door? Oh, that's the easiest way to get outside this room is use the doorway. But sometimes you might find yourself wherever you are, closed down, and you feel like you're just pounding your head against the wall and nothing is happening. Ask yourself, how could I do this easier? And you will be surprised at the limitlessness of how your brain will come on up with a solution. So, Andrea, would you like to show the next one with Milton Traeger's thumbs?
No. There we go. We get there, we go. Let me get back to where we were. Here, this one. This one. Oh.
There we go. Thank you. So I have been, or I am a senior Traeger practitioner, been doing this for over 30 years. And this is a gift. Milton did this for about 40, 50 years before anybody had ever heard of his name, Milton Traeger. Now, in order to do Traeger, when we start doing these movements, it's not the effort, it's not how big a range of motion, it's the mindfulness of it. So I call this mindfulness in motion. So when you're doing this, it's a state of mindfulness. Now, this is Milton Traeger with Krillian photography, that when he dropped into that zone, and that's like what I'm saying, you can get into that zone in 10 seconds. When I do Traeger, I can go, I'm there. In fact, I've probably been there since we've been doing this podcast. It's a beautiful place to be in. And the thing is that attracted me to Milton's work was, even though nobody knew about him for 50 years, he said, this is my contribution to world peace. And I could not believe anybody would give of their life to teach this to people without language, how you can bring peacefulness to the world. And I think what you're going to experience after we do this will be a very calm place. So the next slide, please, Andrea.
I think that might be, it's not this one, right? Is it this one?
With the figure eights.
The figure eights. Oh, I think that's on a different, let me just go through some of these. I think I have it on a different video link. Let me see. It's the ones we just did. There's this one and the end one. Okay, so let me get out of the air. I have it on another. Oops.
So as Andrea's looking at this,
I putz around.
When I say about awareness and the hula hoop,
Aha, Iris.
the next time you're standing in a grocery line for express lane that says 12 to 15 items,
Yeah.
and you're looking ahead and you see maybe not the person right in front of you, but you see another person and it looks like they're putting about 30 items on the to the cashier. Give it up, everybody. Say, oh, what a wonderful opportunity I have to do the hula hoop. And you're just doing this hula hoop simply by being aware. And you can do this. Nobody needs to know what you're doing. You've got a choice, hips, knees, or ankles. But that's one way, or if you're waiting at the bus stop, all kinds of ways that you can integrate this in your day so it doesn't take up any time. Now, what I like to teach you right now is this head movement, like a bobblehead. And what you're going to do, everybody, is you're going to trace the number 8. So what I'd like you to do is close your eyes, everyone, and imagine your nose as a pencil. And right in front of you is a sheet of paper, and you start tracing the roundest, most fluid number 8 with your nose. And if you feel any glitches in your neck, slow it down, breathe with it. You can say, how could that be smoother? Pay attention to the direction you're moving in right now and reverse the number 8. Go the other way. And you may had to have stopped for a second to think about that. And just doing that and gradually getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Even with your eyes closed, just notice how you're feeling inside. Now, I'd like you to trace the infinity sign. So it's like the number 8 flipped on its side. So it's up and over. And you're just doing the roundest, most fluid number 8. And notice what direction you're going in and change direction. Go the number 8 the other way. Gradually getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Now, as you're doing this, we're going to put the 2 together. So again, close your eyes with your nose, and I'm going to guide you through this. Everybody start off number 8, top to bottom. And you can go a little bit larger if you feel like it. Change direction, number 8 the other way. And now number 8, it's on its side. So you're going to just do an infinity sign, left to right. Notice what direction you're going in and change direction, go the other way. Go back to number 8, top to bottom. Change direction. Side to side infinity sign. And as you're doing this, start realizing that this transference of motion is going all the way down your spine, to your feet. So you might be aware or are aware of that 3-point stance now. And now I'd like you to play side to side, go back to top to bottom, change direction, side to side, change direction, top to bottom, and just keep going back and forth, everyone. And notice your breathing gradually getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Until you come to a place of silence. How does that feel? I'll talk more about the neurology next week around the whole concept. But now, just to wrap this up, because we were coming to our time, just take one hand, everybody, place it on your chest. This is our sternum focus. Feel your feet on the floor. That 3-point stance. And now do the head motion, number 8. And your other hand is on your belly button. So you're just, and as you're doing this, just notice how you get the whole core of your body moving with this. Changing direction, side to side, gradually getting smaller and smaller. Until you come to a stillness, yet maybe still feeling this ripple effect throughout your body. And breathe. There you go. How does that feel? If you felt like you zoned out, that's great. Because you can do this anywhere. And what I wanted to show you was this is combining what we did last week, the sternum focus. You're sitting now with the awareness of your 3-point stance. And you've added this Trager motion. And we'll pick this up next week. But in closing, with the developmental hierarchy, I've got this little critter here.
A critter.
Now, some of you are in the state of metamorphosis. You're changing, you're transforming yourself, discarding whatsoever bound you up, releasing these chains. And as you go through this metamorphic change, something miraculously happens. And all of a sudden, you transform yourself into a butterfly with wings that you can fly through life.
Oh God, the kids must have went crazy when we did that.
So again, thank you, everybody. Really my pleasure.
Yeah.
And teach this to somebody.
Yeah. Well, Paul, thank you so much for coming back and sharing all this fantastic information. So like, actually for me, I guess actually, they don't want this out. you found that out last week with all kinds of technical issues, and then of course our friend Renata also noticed there was some stuff they didn't want out. And last night I got beat up by the deep state. Throughout this is the first time it's been so. I mean, this is curious because normally they'll hit me with a frequency for a psychological attack, but they didn't. This is one of the first times they used physical violence where they threw me around and I feel like I just, plowed a field by myself. I'm like full body beat up. So it was a roller coaster last night. I can tell last night was just insane. Um, but doing some of these things, I feel some of it lifted, even though this is for a physical attack, because we have a lot of people who are both being frequency attacked and physically attacked or physically attacked. Will it work for them? So I got to test it today. So I want to thank the deep state for doing that to me last night. Yeah, I mean, I feel like there is a little bit of a lightning. I feel
Yes.
a little more. I just about man. I'm trying to. We're gonna do this no matter what. I'm half dead here. But yeah, it's definitely, released some of what they've done to me. Within what, I've only done a few of these things right here. So yeah, it I don't know. They say the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So that's what we want people to try these things and we want, hopefully, like I said, I feel better now from my just recent attack. So folks can try these things and keep doing them, even
Yes.
every day or something. See if they mitigate any of the attacks.
I totally agree with you, Andrea. Like, do these, it takes 2 minutes.
Yeah, it takes.
However, you're going to feel so much better. And that's why I've created this. And as Andrea was saying, I don't know what it is that is threatening,
Oh, I know who it is. We know. We know.
but I got to say, my friend, you know, Andrea said this. Okay. Since last week, everybody, my computer has acted up like it's never acted up before. As soon as we finish this podcast, Andrea and I were going to talk through a little bit. My speaker died.
Yeah.
Then the podcast came out, and some people were getting it in German.
Oh, yes, I forgot about. Yes.
And Andrea says, I did nothing. I did nothing. It was in German,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
Then it switched back the next day. And then I had another meeting and my camera wouldn't work.
Ah, yeah.
So I mean, okay, my camera wouldn't work. And then I got to a place where my computer says did not open correctly, did not shut down correctly. It was, what is happening?
Oh, that's welcome to our world. It's real, guys.
And
It's real. Yeah.
and I, have tech service. So I called up my tech service and I said, listen, I was just doing this yesterday. What has happened? They went in for about an hour and a half and they said, all your settings have been changed.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so either the powers that be don't want this out there
Oh, they
for
don't.
me to share this with you, but I don't care. I
We
want
don't
you to
care.
have these, I want you to have these skills.
Yeah.
So all the best, and I'll see you next week.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Paul. We're all looking forward to it. And as always, as Frank Chili always tells us, and Jesse, see you upstairs.
Definitely. Thank you. Bye.